What's good, family? It's your man, the YB, back once again. Big shout out to my doggy, Darren, in the morning for coming through and boosting up the coin, 100%. So, we got some breaking news right now regarding my man's Juggernaut Joyce, who is now locked in to be fighting some next Donny called Zhang on April 15th at the Copper Box Arena in London. Now, listen, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. People often throw around the phrase throwback fighter. My doggy Joe, my doggy JJ, he ain't playing no games. He a real throwback fighter. Not no Tyson Fury, fighting Chisora. Oh, but why be their friends? I ain't trying to hear about friends. Yeah? If you want to make friends, put your hand in your own pocket. Don't tell me about friends and in the public page. You understand? Oh, YB, he doing a favour for his friend. No, the public are doing a favour for his friend. Tyson Fury didn't put a hand in his pocket for Chisora. In fact, he punched a whole bunch of brain cells, and Chisora don't have many left, by the way. Meanwhile, Joyce, who don't have no belts, is out here fighting championship contenders. Facts. Call me a liar. Joe Parker, championship contender level. Danny Dubois, championship contender level. And by the way, he ain't just fighting them and beating them. He popping their cherry. Dubois popped your cherry. Yeah? Joe Parker popped your cherry for you. And now Zhang, I hate to say it, but he up next. Zhang, he getting his cherry popped, 100%. Zhang has never been stopped. And really, I'm not even sure he's lost before. The Hrgovic fight, he beat Hrgovic. And that's the crazy thing. Joyce, he ain't just fighting random guys. He fighting guys who pop other dudes' cherries. Yeah, Hrgovic, he was the next big thing. Nafandaral looking ass dude. He was the next big thing. Zhang goes in there and popped his cherry for him. Put him down for the first time in his career. Took his virginity, 100%. And Zhang won that fight hands down. And guess what? Joe, for no belts really, is about to go in there and fight the man who beat Hrgovic. Hrgovic is the big scary guy. Zhang beat him, and Joe just rocking up out of nowhere. And I actually think to some extent, it's bad management. It's just dangerous. You know what I'm saying? That's why I tell you, this dude here is a throwback fighter. He handling business like a champion supposed to be handling business. Tyson Fury should be fighting the Zhangs of the world, and not Derek Chisora. And before that, who was it? Who did he fight before that? I'm sure he fought some bumps. Now, I think it was Otto Wallin or them ones there. Who doing that? Otto Wallin ain't no Zhang. That's what we know for a fact. When was the last time Otto Wallin put down Hrgovic? Oops, he ain't did it. That's what he ain't did. So, what I will say is, it's quite scary really. The odds are massively in favour of Joyce. So much so, it don't even make sense to put money on it. For Joyce to win is 10 to 1. Or 1 to 10. So you put 100 quid on, you get a tenner profit. It makes no sense. I love my doggy Joe, but there's no, you'd have to put the bank on it. And that's what I'm saying. This fight is not put a bank on it fight. Don't get me wrong. I back my doggy Joe to smoke this guy, but the odds aren't appreciating for what this tangle is. I think Joe Public, they don't know this guy from Adam. But trust me, this is a proper industry fight. And it worries me. I wonder about who managing Joe. Because where's the upside here? No one knows Zhang. In a way, Hrgovic versus Joyce would have made more sense. Although Hrgovic wouldn't have taken the fight. Because Hrgovic, he's next in line for the championship belts. Joe is at the back of the line. He's behind Dubois, shockingly enough. So I don't think Hrgovic would take that fight. But that makes more sense. Joyce go in there with Hrgovic, knock that guy out, and take his mandatory shot. But again, they ain't going to want it. So I do wonder, who's managing this guy? Because, guess what? Number one, Joyce's management team, they played him out of the WBA strap that Dubois now got. Yeah? Dubois, why was Dubois manoeuvred into the WBA position? Someone explain that to me. Yeah? Frank Warren's supposed to. be managing Joe Joyce. And Frank Warren knows, wait there, I'm promoting Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce beat Dubois, so I should be giving the big opportunities to Joe Joyce. Instead, he punked Joe and give the opportunity to Dubois. Dubois got no chops, got no chin at all. Just went life and death with Kevin Lorena, who was paid off not to fight back in the end. It's like, what are we doing here? And yet Dubois is up next for the belts. And meanwhile, so wait a minute, meanwhile, Daniel Dubois is being fed WBA regular, what do you call them, fluff fights. Kevin Lorena, fluff fight, yeah? That bum who for the WBA belt, fluff Trevor Bumman, that's it. Daniel Dubois fought Trevor Bumman and Kevin Bumlana, yeah? So wait a minute, Daniel Dubois, he fighting fluffs, and my doggy Joe, he getting the guys who smoking, taking virginities. What the fuck? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's that about? Someone explain to me. And you know the crazy thing? Daniel Dubois got paid $2.2 million to fight Trevor Bumman. Do you understand, people? Dubois is being paid millions to fight bums. Meanwhile, now I don't know what Joe Joyce is being paid. I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, fair play to Frank Warren, but I'd bet Joe Joyce is not being paid $2.2 million to fight Zhang. So the question is, why is Dubois being paid a whole bunch to fight bums, and he's losing, going life and death with them, and yet my doggy Joe, who turn up and deliver value, he being paid a few less money to fight the rock solid industry fights. This here is an industry fight. This is not a fluff fight. And yet my doggy Joe's in it. Like, do you know what I'm saying? And again, that same man, Frank Warren, he has no problem putting on Chisora versus Fury and Dubois versus Bryan. Why? Wait a minute, Frank. Why don't you serve up Zhang for your man Dubois? Innit? Explain that to me. Now, as it happens, I haven't got a problem. I think Joe gonna smoke on this dude, but it's just for me, it's the principle. It irritates me that Joe, who's the most deserving contender in the history of the game, in my opinion, there's never been a man in the history of boxing, heavyweight boxing, who's been more deserving of a title fight after knocking out Joe Parker and knocking out Daniel Dubois. And no doubt he's about to knock out Zhang as well. Zhang's never been down and never been stopped. And that is the upside here. The upside here for Joe Joyce is to stop this man. And that'll be another wow. That's the upside here. Stopping an industry, what's the word? For Joe Joyce to stop one of the industry's finest. That's where it's like, that's the upside. But really, it's not the point. We're not in the game for doing things for the industry. We're in the game for coins and legacy. But again, it's not even really a legacy defining fight. Joe Joyce is having hard fights and he's not being massively compensated for it. Don't get me wrong, it's good money, but I don't know. For me, it's the injustice. Dubois is the most undeserving dude. What's he doing? He's hanging around getting punched up by random dudes. Do you know what I'm saying? How does that work out? How does a man being punched up by everyone be getting multi-million-dollar WBA regular opportunities? Meanwhile, my doggy Joe, he getting served up, you know what I'm saying? The proper things. But anyway, the good news is, the righteous will prosper. My doggy Joe will go in there and smoke on this dude. Anyway, am I nervous about this fight? Zhang's a big puncher. This really, honestly, I said it earlier, this really is an industry fight. There's no other way of putting it. To some extent, they're both quite similar. They're both older. They're both like 38, 40 years old. And they're both rock solid chins. And they're just behemoths, truth be known. Two big behemoths going in the ring. It's I can't, there's no other way to explain it. It's an industry classic, this is. This ain't no Dubois versus Lorena crap. This ain't no Fury versus Chisora crap. This is a proper industry classic. And I just hope, my doggy Joe, he team lighty, 100%, but I'm just praying. I'm praying. We've seen Chris Ubambi Jr. He out of here. We've seen, what's the other guy? What's the other light-skinned clown? We've seen Kell Brook. off the sniff. So we got dudes losing their chops. You know what I mean? Let's not forget, people. Chris Ubambi Jr., his whole shtick was, I've got a rock solid chin. I'm just praying. Number one, I'm praying. I DM'd Joe. I said, listen, man, please tighten your defense up. Please study Canelo. Please study Bivol. You don't see them, man, taking big, huge shots. Certainly not again and again and again. And for someone like Joe, yeah, his style should be Canelo in that sense. Look at how Canelo beat Kovalev. Elbows in, chin down, stalk the guy. You can't be stalking dons with your hands down. That's how I feel. I don't know what people talk about, these trainers and whatever else. Listen, man, Mike Tyson, when he was stalking people, I've never seen a successful stalker do it with their hands down. A great example the other month, or a great example of how not to do it, go back and watch Clarissa Shields versus Savannah Marshall. Savannah Marshall walked forward with her hands down. Pop, pop, pop. Just ridiculous. Complete. Yeah? And I'm tired of a lot of these trainers getting a lot of credit, but they ain't doing the basics right. If you've got a pressure fighter, I don't know, maybe it's me, maybe it's this new age thing, but I'm saying, if you've got a pressure fighter, elbows in, chin down, hands up. That's how you pressure fight. You don't pressure fight with your hands at your shoulder length. Pop, pop, pop. I mean, I hate to say it, but we've seen it too much. We've seen, how many times have we seen Joe Joyce with complete bums? Christine Hammer, I think. Everyone has had a go on Joe's chin. Now, it's cast iron for now, but that Eubank thing, man, that gets me nervous. Because we was all sure, listen, even if Ubambi loses, he ain't going to be getting knocked out. Next thing we know, he's bark out. Do you know what I'm saying? That tells me that, and it's a well-known cliche within boxing. People have cast iron chins until they don't. And there's no reason for Joe to be playing that Russian roulette. Get your chin down, get your hands up, and plough forward. Pop him right in his chops with the jab, and go to work. And what I will say is, one of the areas I feel Joe Joyce goes wrong on, when he gets his shots off, sometimes you'll see Joe Joyce admiring his work. You'll see him at this kind of, with his hands here, he'll get some shots off and he'll stand there like this, just almost waiting to be countered. Rather than the best fighters, whenever they let their hands go, not by nature, but by discipline and drilling, whenever your combinations come off, your hands recoil to the right place. Not recoil. It's no good your hands recoil into you. Joe Joyce, from what I've seen, his hands recoil to shoulder level. That's why, how many times have we seen it? Joe Joyce gets some shots off, and then ding, ding, ding. No good. The best fighters, Canelo, Bivol, whenever they get their work off, hands come straight back in, elbows in, chin down, and they're in their shell. That's all, for me, yeah. It sounds, people laugh, oh, YB, you always say elbows in, chin down. But it sounds funny, but that's really all Joe needs to do. Joe has it all, for his style, that's all he's missing. And it's a basic principle. But look at Liam Smith, here's an example. Liam Smith, he ain't got all the extras. I'd argue he doesn't even have the extras Joe Joyce has. Joe Joyce has honestly, probably one of the best jabs in history of the game, truth be known. No one really understands what's going on there, I have to be honest. But Joe Joyce, let's be real here, I don't know how he does it. He's not the quickest. He's damn sure not the quickest, but I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Joe Joyce has one of the most mysterious jabs in the game of boxing. All we know is Joe Joyce goes in there with people and they come out, big pork pie looking ass eye. Joe Parker, his face was just butchered, and it was mainly the jab. Joe Joyce has the most accurate jab I've ever seen. People can talk about Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury isn't leaving people disfigured like Joe Joyce is. It's accurate, consistent. And that's the point I'm making. Joe has he has the extras. He has the things that don't make no sense. He pulls them off. All that's missing is the tight defense. And at heavyweight division, it's absolutely critical. You can't afford, especially, and it's not like you're 31, and even if you are 31, look at Eubank, look at Ubambi. Ubambi Jr., 33 years old, and his chops just disappeared. Joe Joyce is 38, 39. Now I'm praying that age isn't a factor, but we know look at Roy Jones. Roy Jones, he was 50, but still, Hopkins and Roy Jones, them man, their chin just disappeared on them, forsake them. Yeah? So you don't need to be taking them risks. Elbows in, chin down, pop that jab right in his chops for him, and keep it tight. That's all Joe needs to do. All the other stuff, trying to be too slick with it, and forget about all that rubbish. Forget about that. Elbows in, chin down. Juggernaut. Yeah, a juggernaut, by definition, is about defense. Juggernaut isn't just about big bazooka. Yeah, juggernaut, tight defense. And that's the only, I've said it, I messaged him and told him, listen, the only way any of these guys get a look in is if you give them one. If you're standing there, hands at shoulder level, Tyson Fury going to play ping pong with your head all night. If you're not, again, look at Canelo versus Kovalev. Kovalev was popping a jab all night. Go and look at Canelo's face, not a mark on it, or very little marks on it. And Kovalev, I'd argue Kovalev's a much better jabber than Tyson Fury is. Kovalev at the time probably had one of the best jabs in the game, and Canelo with his shell, them jabs was getting parried all night. Look at Canelo versus Callum Smith. The shots, easy work, too tight. Look at Golovkin. Golovkin had decent defense, but he's disciplined sometimes with fade. He'd get tired, and that's the great thing about Joe Joyce. He don't seem to get tired. So imagine you've got a man in a shell walking forward with the most accurate jab in the history of the game, popping you in the head. It's game over. This guy can only be beat if he leaves leaky holes. Anyway, I'm excited for this fight. I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't nervous, but I'm excited for this fight. Joe's a throwback fighter, a throwback mentality, and I hope he gets everything he deserves. Joe Joyce deserves to have a cast iron chin. He deserves not to be caught slipping, if that makes sense, because he's the one taking all the risk. I'd hate for some miracle for him to get caught. I'd just hate that, because he actually deserves to get to the top level and smoke. Joe Joyce will punch a hole through Usyk. That's a fact. Usyk don't want it. I'd bet my life on it. Tyson Fury, that's a more tricky fight, but still, if Joe's tight, he punch a hole through Tyson Fury as well. Tyson Fury can't even get rid of Chisora. Oops. If he can't get rid of Chisora, we know what Joe... That's the crazy thing. We know what Joe Joyce does to people who can't get rid of Chisora. He punch a hole through them. Oops. Yeah? With all due respect, we saw Joe Parker do more damage to Chisora than Fury did. And that's what makes it so scary. Imagine, yeah. Currently, with Joe Joyce's current style, his defense a little bit too leaky. I think Fury would touch him. If Joe Joyce curls them shoulders over, gets into that tight frame, and what's Fury going to punch? Fury ain't going to punch nothing. He's going to get his jab, pop. You'll see Fury getting touched all over, 100%. And Fury will be clinching for dear life. That's all he'll be able to do is clinch. And Joe will punch a hole through him. Yeah? Fury's been on about that anyway. Fury ain't going to fight that fight. He's going to retire. That's what you best believe. Long before the Joe Joyce fight, he'll be in retirement. You best believe that one. Anyway, salute to my doggy Joe. Let me know your thoughts. Smash the like button, subscribe, and leck off the bell, 100%.